Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Epicmetapodcast. Your host today is Thang and George. George, how's it going?
It's going great. How are you?
Good. I'm still drinking my first cup of coffee, so I'm almost there. It's almost at 100%. It's like 99% there. But,
I think I'm drinking my third.
oh, that's fantastic. Then you're good to go. You're
I was
ready.
up at 5 this morning.
Oh, wow. What were you doing? Work stuff or just personal stuff?
Personal stuff. I have a practice I'm on day 4 of 21 where I get up at 5 in the morning and do 10 minutes of mantra.
Fantastic. Is this like a book thing or internet thing? Is there like a plan from like some author, or is it just something you're?
I'm working with a personal mentor.
Wow,
Yeah.
sounds fun. 5 o'clock though. That's tough. You know, there's like every now and then I bump into a YouTube video that's like wake up at 4:30 in the morning for 30 days straight. It's like Jesus, man. No, I don't. I'm not gonna even click on your video.
She told me it's a spiritual window. Like it's a time of the day when you can have a direct connection.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Well, let me know. I think that's an episode by the end of the your 21 day. No, really. I think it. Yeah.
So far so good. I mean, it's a major shift.
Yeah, because I talked to other friends and whatnot, and they're like, "Yeah, dude, you should meditate 10 minutes. It'll totally." I'm like, "No, I'm already my mind is as blank as can possibly all the time. Like I'm meditating all the time. I'm trying to empty my brain all day, every day, every minute, possibly. So that's why I really need Neuralink to be real and happen.
Well,
It's like,
your mind may be empty, but I definitely sense a tension that maybe needs to relax a little bit.
yeah, it's all about coffee. Just stop drinking coffee, which is never gonna happen. So,
Hey,
all right. Well,
if you're fine with it, then I'm fine with it.
yeah. Well, today's episode we were going to. I mean, it's really meta because we were gonna talk about podcasting. Unless you wanna do a quick opening and tell our listeners what we're planning to do this episode.
Okay, well, you and I had watched a YouTube video that we'll link in the notes, and it was essentially a guy who was presenting a how-to video on how to make a podcast that will attract viewers, and there were certain questions that he wanted us to ask ourselves and answer in order to shift us more in that direction.
Yeah, thank you. It's honestly we kind of promoting this YouTuber and it's not just about podcasting. It's a video about just content strategy or attracting people to your channel. And you know, so this is gear primarily for YouTubers, but as our medium, I think it works for all medium. That's I would say so social media related. So have you? I mean, for larger context, you know what we did in episode 1, what we did in episode 10 is really kind of similar to work. The same trajectory of work. Did you? I remember that maybe I'm wrong, but I remember your initial reaction is that you kind of don't agree with this video. Is that correct? Did you was that correct, or was that my imagination?
I might have said that, but I don't recall saying that, or if, and I don't recall why I said that.
Okay. Well,
do you remember
great.
me saying that? And
I think
did I give you any more information than that, or?
I think it was text messaging, so it wasn't like it wasn't a verbal thing. So maybe it's the thing with text is you can miscommunicate a lot. But I think generally you don't. My vibe or my understanding is that you kind of disagree with a few things. But regardless, now you're all about it. So which is fantastic because an extend episode of episode 1 and episode 10 is, I've thought about it, and some I do have some answers, and then some questions I really don't have any answers. And the more we can crystallize those answers, I think we can deliver better stuff to our, 5 listeners, 10 listeners, who knows how many out there. What By the way, off tangent, we hit 200 downloads this past week. I don't know if you were aware on audio format. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's more than that. It's like 250.
50. Yeah, 250 now. I just saw the email. Oh, my God, it's a celebration, George.
It is. Yeah.
It means somebody's listening and new people are listening. So maybe we have 15 listeners. Who knows?
Well, we have downloads in North America, Europe, Asia, and Australia. So that's at least 4 different people.
Well, I was thinking about that. And I don't know if you know, but there's this thing called VPN software out there. I don't know if you're aware of them, but
Virtual private network.
Correct. If there's VPN people, if there are people using VPN, that might just be on North America. But let's assume that we have a worldwide audience. I'm kind of excited to make our channel, have worldwide appeals. What do you?
Yeah. I mean, everyone's connected to the internet. I don't see why we wouldn't be getting downloads from other places than North America.
Fantastic. Okay, let's dive into it. I don't know if you did any kind of prep work, but you can start us off, and we'll go from there.
Well, so the first question that this YouTuber wants us to ask ourselves and to answer is, who is our target audience, and to start as small as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And so the first answer I come up with is you and me.
Yes,
we are our own target audience.
You know what's the tragedy of that? The tragedy of that is you. as in you're actually more of an audience than I am. So I love doing this, like just talking. However, upon re-listening, I find it very hard to consume the podcast. Now, if it was somebody else's voice, it was like, let's say George and who knows somebody, I can probably be okay listening to it. Is it just the actual audio sound of my voice that I'm having a difficult time? And then of course, like, the thoughts that I have, and like when you speak, I can listen to the podcast easier. But when I speak, I'm like, dude, I already have this thought. It's just basically watching a movie over again, and I find it very difficult to re-listen to my own stuff.
Why?
Whereas, I don't know. So it doesn't happen for you, right? Like when you listen to it,
I find myself fascinating. I do.
So really, the audience is more you than even me, because I can listen to older episodes. So let's say we just did, we're on 17 now. If I listen to 13 or 12 or 11 or anything like further away, the more it is out of my memory, the easier it's for me to reconsume it.
Why do you think that is?
I think it's just how my brain works. So like, I can watch a movie because I'm very visual. I can watch a movie I like, but if you tell me to watch a movie I've already seen, like I just seen again, it's very difficult for me, especially if I don't like it.
So I find you like novelty?
Yes, I like novelty. I like new things. So when you tell me to re-consume something, unless I like it a lot, I have trouble re-consuming it. Over and over. Especially the format we're doing is not like educational. It's not notes taking. So let's say I have to do research on an essay or something, and have to watch a movie or audio. Then I can reconsume it multiple times, right? Trying to listen for something specific. But
Well, it's interesting that you said, you like novelty, so therefore you don't like listening to the podcast. But it's easier for you to listen to older podcasts, older episodes than newer ones. So the more an episode ages, the more novel it becomes to you. That seems like a contradiction to me.
no, it's not a contradiction because the older an episode is, the more the less memory I have of it. Does
Which
that make
makes
sense?
it more novel, yeah.
Yeah, because I like think of computer system and RAM. Like I my RAM storage is only so much, right? And after a while, I don't remember having that conversation. And then so when I listen to it again, I'm like, oh,
It's
you
like you're
know,
having it for the first time.
correct. Not exactly the first time, but
More the first time than it would have been had you
right.
listened
So
to
like
it
for this
the previous
episode
time.
or like the last one where we talk about the Matrix, I'm like, it just happened. Whereas for you, it's different, right? For you, do you feel the consumption between our earlier episodes and the more recent one? Is there any difference, or how does it
Yeah,
go
so
for you?
when I re-listen to an episode, it's there's some um, there's some entertainment value I derive from reliving the thought processes that I had previously experienced, but
Mm-hmm.
it's reliving it from a new perspective because I'm not
Mm.
the person I was when the podcast was made. I've lived, I don't know, maybe 2 more weeks of life, and I'm two weeks older and 2 weeks more experienced,
Hmm.
and I can look on that previous version of myself and with fondness or with
Wow.
compassion and yeah. So it's sort of a different. I'm sort of experiencing a different person.
So you don't feel any difference from like older episodes to more recent episode. There's no that doesn't happen for you, or how does that work for you? Is there any difference at all? Are you
I'm not.
more fond of older episodes than newer ones?
No, the fondness level has to do with. I guess it has to do with the topic that we're
Mm.
discussing and whether um, we came up with anything that was surprising or innovative.
Okay, fair enough.
Mm.
So it's the quality of the episode, regardless of how regardless of the age or when the episode
Yeah,
was made. Okay.
yeah, and there's certain episodes where we end up in really interesting places that,
Mm.
and yeah, and I like that. And
Yeah.
I like to see how we got there. How we approached it.
Nice. Wow. You must have, yeah. So I think is it maybe school? I don't know. School, personal development. Sometimes they always recommend journaling. Do you, when you were younger or even now, do you journal? Like, I never understood the concept. I try for maybe 5 days and I'm like, what am I doing this? There's this thing called email and,
Yes, I
infinite.
journal.
Yeah, I don't get it. But I think the way you reconsume our podcast episode is how I'm supposed to. It's a way. This is why journaling will work. Like you review the same thought patterns.
Yeah,
Uh,
well,
okay.
the benefit of the journal is not necessarily that you'll go back and reread it. It's more there's something about taking your thoughts and writing them down on paper
Mm.
and not typing them, but writing them with a pen or pencil, and it does something to you. That that action has an effect on um, the way you think.
Hmm.
So it helps to process whatever that thought is and to organize it and
Mm-hmm.
to conceptualize it and then it kind of has a special place in your brain afterwards.
Do you think it helps you? Because I know writing helps with remembering, and I will do that for trying to memorize things. Do you think that for some people it's therapeutic? Is that why people?
Yes,
Yeah. Okay.
it's not just to remember. It's
Okay.
to process.
Yeah.
You're you're I don't know, and it's I can't I can't 100% explain it except to say that, like, if there's something I'm struggling with, some sort of issue that keeps popping up in my mind, that's bothering me,
Mm-hmm.
and I sit down and write about it in my journal. um, when I'm done with that, I feel a catharsis. I feel like
Right.
I've somehow processed that idea to a higher
Mm.
level, and I've made progress in some way.
Hmm. Fantastic. Wow. That's you make a really good case for journaling. Whereas
I
I,
recommend it. It takes, you got to kind of get into the habit of it.
yeah.
One thing that uh, probably stops people from journaling is they feel intimidated, like they have to write a certain amount.
Mm.
Just write one sentence a day.
Yeah. That's really difficult for me.
Really? One sentence a day is difficult?
I don't. First of all, I hate pen and paper. Like the whole concept of physical, I hate it.
Oh.
So I grew up where my dad is, I would say, a hoarder of paperwork, not
Mhm.
clothings or toys or a general hoarder that you understand today. But he have a tendency, and I have a tendency now that I'm getting older. I start recognizing. So I absolutely will do anything and everything to counteract that that symptom or habit
Hmm.
as much as I can, because I start seeing it and it's a negative connotation to me. Right now, do I have a bookcase behind me with what books and stuff and all this stuff? Yeah, absolutely. But I try my best to go away from paper as much as I can. And I think that journaling, I've done virtual journaling for going through this book, The Secret, or what was it? The Happiness Advantage by Sean Aker. We mentioned it before.
Hmm.
And he asked for you to write something down. So I go through a virtual thing with that, and I find it helpful. But after a while, when I thought I was like basically done with it, I stopped doing that. So I'm curious if there are people or listeners out there that do virtual journaling, and if that makes a difference between physical versus virtual.
I I
But
would I would highly think that it would make a big difference.
cool. That was a long tangent from our original, question, which is, so if the target audience is you and me, um,
Well, that's just one possibility.
right. That's certainly a possibility. But I think it's correct, because I was thinking about this, and then it's like, who do you like, if there was a target audience for this podcast, I would replicate you, right? I would want more George out there to listen to this podcast, because
Hmm.
they would find the same thing fascinating, right?
Yep.
However, my question is, what does that mean? and then
That's my question
secondly,
too.
right, and then secondly, follow up to that. Let's say you and I are having a conversation, and we brought this up. I brought this up before, and I said, you know, this is just like a conversation having with a friend in a bar over a beer, right? Like why would that be interesting? And you responded, of course it'll be interesting. But upon thinking about this episode, I realized if you are in a bar talking to somebody, right, and next to you somebody else is doing it, they're having their own friend group. You
Mhm.
don't listen to their conversation because it's uninteresting to you, right?
I guess it depends what they're talking about and
Mm,
who the people are. If they're
right.
annoying or if they strike me as interesting people.
So can you define there's two way to go about it. It's kind of like inductive versus abductive, right? Like we can go after people that are like George and Tang, or people that are not like George and Tang. Like who do you find annoying? And
Hmm.
and by the process of not subtraction, not excluding those people, of course not, but by subtracting, and it allows us to focus in, right? So if you draw like a circle and you draw a smaller circle, eventually you get to a very focused target, right? So we can mold, like create a sculpture by putting clay on a stick figure, like on a frame, right? Or
Yes.
you can be amazing, like Michelangelo or crazy artists, and give you a block, and then you carve it away. Either way, you would get to that, to that target. Um,
Hmm.
so, whichever way you like it, tell me, who do you think that we should go after? Uh, and
Yeah.
do you think that
Uh,
one process yield more than the other?
well, I'm not sure I entirely followed what you just said, but I think, I mean, I'm pretty confident that there are there's a population of people in the world who find me entertaining and interesting.
Yes. Yes.
And I don't. I'm trying to say that with all humility. But so, and I'm one of those people. So,
You know, the Toastmaster George that I know is not on this podcast as much as I thought he would be. Do you know that? I don't know if you ever
oh,
told you that.
that's sort of interesting. Can you
Yeah.
explain that?
So the Toastmaster George, for those listeners out there that don't know you for real, is I think is on this podcast, partially. But the problem is writing, speaking, performing, and then the ability to have conversation, kind of like impromptu, is very different from each other. And being being funny or interesting, or having the ability to pull people in with your pattern of thinking, or I would say thoughts, are more crystallized and better control when you are writing. So if you're a stand-up comedian, which I think you sometimes are, um, I didn't know until I started participating in Toastmaster that there's a lot of writing. And I think comedians write a lot. Like they have to literally write their jokes and think about them and
Yeah.
work on iterations of it, right? So
Mm-hmm.
like second or third or fourth version of that joke might be the same first version that you heard on the TV or the stand up, etc.
Mm-hmm.
And so I admire that about comedians. They write a lot. But you have to understand, like, by the time you receive it as an audience, they master that material.
Well,
Um,
there's definitely a prepared thought pattern that they go through,
mhm,
but then there's also another part to it that's more spontaneous and
mm,
like a thought might strike them in the moment and they'll go with that too,
mm,
or the audience might react in a certain way and that'll lead them to go in another direction. So there's a spontaneity to it as well, but there's also a prepared part.
yeah. And I find that your preparedness version of you, is not on here as much because it's really
Which
hard to prepare for something like this. And I think it's both new for us too. So
which do you like better? The
I like the
prepared or
Toastmaster. I like the Toastmaster George a lot more because it
really?
is. Yeah. Now here's the thing. Here's the thing. The medium is so different, right? For those who don't know, Toastmaster come in bite-sized chunk. It's literally 5 to 7 minutes, and then you don't have a lot of time um to engage. This format, this dance that we do is way longer. Um, I think it's a different yeah, it's just a different take. And the reason why, I thought about it, I really couldn't pinpoint it. I don't know the explanation perhaps, but the thing that I come away with is that because you only give 5 to 7 minute speeches, and then sometime when you evaluate, I get a little bit of that humor that you do, which is totally like the essence of George, right? Like the meta. I don't know how to describe it, but it's very meta and self-reflective, and it's funny. It's very different from every other Toastmaster that I've come across because, you know, I don't know, just different flavor. And then when on this podcast, it doesn't carry as much because I get a different version of you where it's very introspective, and of
Hmm.
course, extended version of that. So it's not as rehearsed, it's not as crystallized, and that's going to happen. So it's not like I don't like one or the other. It's just different. Um,
Yeah.
and so
No,
we just need to
it's
find more of this.
maybe in one of our episodes we can do prepared stuff and then
we have
evaluate it.
I've prepared some stuff
No, but
before.
we can like prepare maybe like a 5 to 7 minute speech, for
A
example,
rant. Oh, geez. Hope not.
and then evaluate it.
Oh boy, no, I don't think
No.
so. I'm sorry. I'll evaluate you. I won't do the prepared speech. It's work, right? Because this is enjoyable and fun. And when I do Toastmaster, I try to make it as much fun as humanly possible.
Mhm.
But the essence of work is still there. And so,
You,
um,
you want
you
to
know,
hear something? I uh, I find it more and more difficult to prepare a speech
mm,
over time. I used to
nice.
be able to like write it out and then practice it 10 times and and get it so like I had it all memorized and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Now I find myself more and more just sort of coming up with a basic premise and then having the intention to refine it and the intention to then practice that, but then not actually ever getting around to it. And then finding myself on the day that I have to actually give the speech and then just sort of winging
Yeah,
it.
yeah. I've had that since the beginning of time. So, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what to tell you. I think that's just a
I,
cycle of interest. I would
but
say.
well, oh, maybe so. But I
Have
think
you?
that's also a skill too. Is to be able
Yes.
to have minimal preparation and still
Yeah.
deliver something that's worth listening to.
You know what the gaming term for that is?
What?
Min maxing.
Min
Minimum
max.
input, maximum output.
So I
It's
think
also
I've achieved that stage
yeah.
through, and I owe it all to Toastmasters.
It's also economic terms as well. So it's both a gaming term and a economics term. So produce maximum value at minimum cost. But
And and it's weird because like I sort of feel bad about that. Like I feel like I should be putting in more effort and I should be,
mm.
but you know what? Even over time, that's becoming less and less too.
Let me ask you. You know, some people go away from Toastmaster for a while because of life, and then they
Mhm.
come back, right? And then I don't know if I mentioned it on this podcast before, but I equate things like Toastmaster. So anything that's like semi or even reading a book, anything that's healthy for your brain, I consider it exercise for the mind, right? And
Mhm.
so um you can get burnt out, right? You can get bored and then you can come back later. I mean, look at people who are, compared to mental exercise versus, physical exercise. That can definitely, fall off the treadmill, fall off the wagon, whatever you want to call it, and then people come back. Have
Mhm.
you taken a break from Toastmaster in any volume or timeline?
Yeah, well, I was a member of two clubs at the same time
Mm-hmm.
because I didn't really start out to be a member of two clubs, but they asked me to help found. Well, okay, so Apex is my original club
Mm.
that I love, and I was asked to help be a founding member of Fuquay Arena, and so I got involved over there, and I never really enjoyed that club as much, and I ended up being the president of that club, and I sort of ended up having some personality differences with some of those people over there. I don't know if they would actually admit to that, but there was tension. I felt, and yeah, so I stopped being a member over there, and that freed up some energy for me. So now I'm just at Apex, and I'm not an officer, which is another, um, extra reservoir of energy. And I also got my DTMs, which is the highest level in Toastmasters that you can achieve. So like the pressure's off. So
Still
um,
though, still you still are active.
I
Would
am
you?
still active, and I'm not enjoying the Zoom version that we're doing now because of
Mm,
COVID. That's not quite as invigorating or dynamic or interesting as face to
yeah.
face meetings. Um, but I so okay, yeah. Um,
I think
I
I took time off, and
mhm.
it really makes a difference. And I think you're experiencing burnout. Well, I don't know. Maybe like you said, your mid maxing capabilities, is to the extent where you can still produce and perform at the higher volume. However, there is burnout, right? Comedians, musicians, any kind of performer. After a while, they kind of doing the same thing over, and they get burnt out. Especially, I admire musicians because I don't understand how they can sing the same song over and over.
Well, there's always new sort of twists and turns you can take. Even
Mm,
it like think of the song. They don't play the song exactly the same every time.
right.
So the song itself becomes a framework from which
Mm,
improvisation can be achieved. So or
yeah.
experimented with. So it's never the same thing twice, especially live music, of course.
Hmm.
Obviously, recorded music is the same thing twice,
Yeah.
but
Not
live
me.
performance is interesting, always vital. I believe.
Yeah. I was watching a off topic here. Well, it's kind of on topic. Trying to figure out
Do we even have a topic?
Yeah,
Because
who's the target audience.
when you don't have a topic, then nothing is off topic, right?
Nah, disagree. But I don't know.
Disagree? How can you
I
disagree with that?
so I here's have you watched how comedians Cardi and Coffee with Jerry Seinfeld on Netflix?
I watched a few of them when it first started and quickly got bored.
That's the thing. Like there's no topic, right? So, however, their conversation cracks me up because now very possible they just for the show is only like 15-20 minutes. They might cut out all the boring conversations, right? And for our show, for our podcast, that's very difficult to do, and I don't want to do that, right? So
Yeah, we're not
it's
doing
you have to enjoy this and listening to this. So, other than you, how do you define other people like you? Do you think the people out there also journal? Do you think how much of the journaling population can we pull into this show? Would that be our target audience? People who
it.
journal?
Well, I don't really know how many what percentage of the population journals. Um,
I
there's
don't
got to
know
be
if
a
that's
sizable
the.
chunk that I mean, like we have like 200 downloads and we're happy. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
sure there's way more than 200 journalers out there.
Yeah.
If we got every single or even half of all people who journal, I think that would be a very large
Yeah.
um,
So that's not
pop
that's not the answer.
audience. That's not the answer.
I think the answer is a Venn diagram of all the stuff we've narrowed down, right?
Hmm.
Um, and
What are
um,
the? Let's go over that stuff.
so science fiction,
Uh-huh.
definitely science fiction. I don't know. That's definitely science fiction.
Yeah.
You like history, so I don't like that as much, but I do like humanity. So I learned a word this week. I learned misanthrope. I'm sure
Hmm.
you know about that word. Um,
Yes.
yeah, I heard about that, and then I had to Google it, like over. I think it was a video or something, and then I'm like,
Hmm.
oh my god, this is me. This is totally me. Like I used to think I'm just grumpy, right? Which is kind of true, but then I learned misanthropic, and then I had to like Google it. I mean, I've heard of it before, but this is definitely true. And for those out there, I'll save you the googling. if you're listening to this, which is most of our audience turns out is either listening on their phone while they're walking, or who knows when they're listening to podcasts driving or something, then misanthropic is a person who I don't want to say hate, but feel a disgust towards humanity.
But you just said you're interested in humanity.
I am interested in humanity to the point where it disgusts me, and then I always wonder, how did we
Disgust
get
is
here?
a form of interest.
I don't think so. I would say that humanity interests me to the point of like how it happened, and then how we get here. So in those sense, I am interested in history, but not like the details. Not interested in the details. That's just boring.
Broad strokes.
Yeah, like how did we get here? How did we come to be a species that's like, literally poisoning out a planet, and don't understand that we're all in this together? Um, so I mentioned this before, Buckminster Fuller, the concept of spaceship Earth, and in another episode, and it stuck with me, right? Like this concept of finite, and I don't think most of humanity understand. Maybe the teenagers now get it better than older adults, but it always struck me that, man, we are, because I'm fascinated with space and like alien planets and anything that's out there, and we are flying through space, right? It's just not the way we want to, right? We are sitting on a little tiny spaceship. It happens to be circular, and it happens to move around, a sun. But that sun is moving also. So literally, we're always moving somewhere. We're not static as I think we are. Um, and really, we're on a spaceship with limited water, limited air. We think it's infinite, but it's not. Like we can run out. On a what is it called, solar scale or space scale, you know the sun can explode. Atmosphere can just go away. It's all very finite and very thin, and it's just not that secure as people think that it is.
So what is your point? Like
So that's
people
my
people don't appreciate that, and if they did appreciate it, then it would be better because what?
because then we wouldn't waste as much as we do now, and we wouldn't differentiate from each other as much as we do now. Yeah.
Probably be more grateful too.
Yeah, be more grateful, be better, right? But that is not humanity. And so history in that sense, as viewing on humanity, I actually don't mind reading or researching into it.
Well, have
So
you heard of the reticulating what is it called? The reticulative activating system in the brain?
sounds familiar. What is that?
So
Yeah.
basically, your brain is picking up all sorts of random information all the time, and
Okay.
it's like too much to keep straight. And if you paid attention to all of it all the time, you wouldn't get anything done because you couldn't focus on anything, and you'd just be
Right.
distracted. So
Okay.
you have this system in your brain called the reticulating activating system. It's close to that. I might be saying it slightly
Yeah.
wrong.
So you can
And what
not
it
get
does is
distracted.
it filters out all the stuff that's not important.
Relevant.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
not relevant to whatever you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so in that way you can get stuff done. You
Function.
can yeah, you can envision a task and then perform the task. But there's drawbacks to that because you will often not pick up on something that might be important to you, but that you filtered out. For example, let's say, well, there's this famous experiment, psychology experiment, where they have people watch a video of one person throwing a basketball to another person,
Mm-hmm.
and they were asked to count the number of tosses
Yep.
that, and so they
And
watch, so they do that, and then after they finish watching the video, like the experimenter, the person running the experiment, asks them, okay, how many times did they toss the ball? And they'll say, like, I don't know, 15 or whatever. And
mm-hmm.
then they'll say, did you see the gorilla come out in the middle of
Yeah.
of the video and pound its
Yep.
chest? And most people won't even see the gorilla.
Yeah. They're like, what are
Like
you talking about?
a person
Yeah.
comes out dressed in a gorilla suit and pounds their chest in the middle of the video and then walks away. But
Yeah.
because that wasn't relevant to what they were focusing on, their brain, the
Yep.
reticulating activating system, just filters it out.
Yep.
So there's so why did I bring that up? I forget.
I was talking about humanity in regards to the history, but
Oh,
specifically about Spaceship Earth kind
yeah,
of
yeah.
viewpoint.
And so your point was, you know, most people don't consider that air and water and other resources is finite, and our lives are finite, and all that stuff. But I would posit that our reticulating activating system is filtering filtering that stuff out
True.
so that we
True.
can perform our day-to-day tasks. And
Yeah.
but I agree with you that it is important to touch base with those things, certainly.
Yeah.
Because
Would
life
you say?
is not
Yeah.
just about performing our moment-to-moment tasks.
Would you say that's humanity or psychology or your favorite neuroscience, which is all about the guy you hate? I forgot his name now. I'm blanking
Oh,
on it.
Alan Watts?
No, not Alan Watts. The guy you hate.
Jordan Peterson?
No,
Oh,
we talk about free will with him.
Sam Harris.
Yeah, so that's neuroscience, how the brain works.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that? Well, I guess I'm somewhat. Of course, I'm interested in how the brain works, but I'm more interested in how humanity works. Is that humanity or is that history? Where do you put that?
Both. It's survival, really. I mean, we need that function to survive, but survival isn't enough. We also want meaning in our life, and you don't get in touch with meaning through your reticulating activating system.
If this podcast was a class in college, right? Who would sign up? Where would we be listed under on the curriculum or whatever the glossary of classes you can pick?
Yeah. Would it be psychology? Would it be sociology? Would it be popular culture?
Compared to a show that you like that have a good answer to this among all the other shows that you like to have a good answer to this question, who's the target audience? Is you're a big fan of Lex Freeman, right?
Mm-hmm. I like him.
Yeah. So, do you know who his target audience is? I mean, you can almost immediately on his channel. They only talk about like one thing, and so it's very. If you're wandering through YouTube and you bump into a channel, immediately this is like, oh, this is my thing, or it's not your thing at all. And so that's where we want to get at, where we're crystallized enough that you bumped us randomly, you would be like, no, this is not it. Goodbye. Or you would say, holy crap, this is fantastic. I thought I never knew about this, channel.
And so you feel that we have not sufficiently answered that question yet?
No, definitely not. And then the other questions
are we closer to answering?
I say so. I think from the first episode to episode 10 to now, I would say we're slowly getting to that core. Earlier, I talked about sculpting, and I think we're getting to it. Right, the final product is you can add clay on or you can remove clay. That's the two techniques of sculpting. Of course, you can shape the clay too, but wonderful artists like Michelangelo or something crazy, they see a block of marble and then they see the statue inside of it, right? And that's how good they are. But some people they have to add on to the clay to sculpt it, and that's a two-way of. There's more than one way to answer this question, and we are getting to closer to answer that question. I think the other one is, instead of defining the show, we can also define who won't like the show, who is not for. So that's the other way to go about it. Cool stuff. I had an idea, and I want to run it by you, but I want to do it offline. But I think we can do it online in the show because it's a rather. I mean, unless there's another podcast out there that's very meta and introspective of podcasting itself. Do you know anything like other than our show?
Well, they all sort of do it to an extent.
Like tips on podcasting? So no.
But like Joe Rogan, I would say sometimes touches upon, the art of podcasting. Just anecdotally. Not. It's never like the main topic, but.
Okay.
But.
So my question is, or my idea was this: we break the show, maybe just this one time. And we have an intermission, and I do a little recording, and I say, "Hey, Epic Meta Podcast listeners, to whoever they are," and because in the middle of the show, they won't be able to, it'll be surprised, but they can help. And here's my idea. So if you scroll down to not only just target audience, but if we can somehow do a small description line at the beginning of the show, and we can work on it. So if you tune in to Lex Freeman, he'll say, "Hello, this is Lex Freeman. Welcome to, whatever." And then they go into the show after that intro. I want to work without, 5-10 listeners because they're the first and initial and repeated listeners. They can help us craft this little pitch at the beginning. And I'm wondering if we can get a small survey going so we can get our tagline. What do you think?
Sure. Let's do it.
So our tagline, there's some options out there, and we can work on this. It doesn't have to be this show. It can be the next one whenever we get, I think 3 choice is good. Choice A, choice B, and choice C. And then let's say the next one is episode 18, right? We'll run that until episode 25. We turn off the survey. And so really, the impact is that if you're all, super loyal, original beginner fans, you have a say in what our tagline is. And then if you catch us and listen to episode 26, or when episode 26 comes out, well then, you missed your chance. You have to wait for something else, But that's the thing, like the target audience and the second question, what is this podcast deliver? It's kind of tie into together. And I want to get a tagline where it's like, "Hey, welcome to the Epicmetapodcast. This is Thang and George. We're your hosts. And on this podcast, we talk about humanity, science fiction, and try to deliver, blah, 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 blah." And then, bam, show begins, right? And that's what I want to craft. And I was thinking that our tagline is that follow up on the other tagline that we have, which is be good and be well. I want to craft, welcome to Epic Meta Podcast. We talk about humanity, science fiction, history, and we try for you to be good, do well, and have it all. So that's terrible. That sounds terrible.
Yeah, that sounds terrible. But the general framework of what you're trying to accomplish might be worth doing.
Okay.
Emphasize might.
Good.
But
might.
Yeah, sure.
Well, we need like an opening, right? We don't have one, and right now we're just like, "Welcome to Epic Meta Podcast." And the more
you
we
say,
work
hey,
on,
hey.
That's not an opening. That's an introduction. But the point is, doesn't matter which episode you turn into, like you tune into. Let's say you find us in episode 35. That opening will describe what the show is about.
No, I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
And I think
because we can talk about the Matrix or who knows, humanity, truth. Like, you always want to talk about that? It can be, the topic of the episode the small pitch at the beginning will allow you to understand what this show is all about.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we go into that
But
episode.
the only problem is we don't know what the show is about.
Well, we got science fiction.
Science fiction.
We got humanity.
What's the common thread?
Good question. I don't know.
So let's.
What is the common?
Can we go through each episode? Okay.
Oh, each of our episode already?
Yeah. Maybe a common thread will emerge. Let's see. We start at.
For the most part, I feel as if we're just another movie channel, but I don't think so. That's not.
No, because we're also self-reflexive.
Right.
I think we use the movies as a means to explore our own self-reflection, something like that. Like the movie is not the primary goal.
No, it is not.
It's our unique take. I don't know.
Yeah, I would say it's humanity through a lens of Tang and George, but that's not humanity
It's pretty broad.
through a small lens. Yeah, I would say.
So there must be some. Is there something unique about Tang and George? Well, I mean, obviously, it's unique per se, but I mean, is there something beyond that uniqueness that is special or worthy of sharing with the world?
Listening over and
sharing
over
with the world. Like, do we offer something that is of value to humanity? And okay. And
I wonder.
So okay, yes.
I would say that we. So I don't know if you're seeing my screen.
I'm not. Let me see.
I would say that most podcasts or YouTube channel, whatever you have, is entertaining, right? I mean, people listen to entertain. Now, Lixerman is more educational, right? But maybe we're a blend in between, and it's really just because in the long run, maybe we can even be a discussion, right? Format. Because if you look at Lixerman, it's an interview format. So it's all education almost all the time because he invites, and most podcasts are like this. They invite expertise speakers on, right? And so they have the discussion, but also is very, very educational, which for me is extremely boring to listen to because I'm not looking. Most of the time, I'm looking for the other one, which is entertainment.
Well,
and so
the more interesting episodes are always the ones where the host sort of reveals something personal, or maybe not personal, but it's like the drama of their life, or something like that, something along those lines. It's an interview is generally not as interesting as that. The thing is, you have to get to know the host first in order to care.
Right. Yeah. Good stuff. We haven't gotten anywhere for almost an hour now.
That's not true. And of course, I'll listen back to this.
Well, I think
I'll maybe I'll mine something from it on the back.
Yeah, I think our first episode we talked about this a lot, right? And we never tried to do the hard work of answering it. I don't think there is a common thread between science fiction and humanity, other than the fact that it's a way to look at the human experience, and that's very, very vague. Like, because there's a lot of other things out there talking about the human experience. Right?
Okay, there's something here that we're missing. Because we do have something to offer, and I believe we can narrow this down to something more focused. But I don't think we see it yet, right? Or do you disagree with that? Is it all just too broad?
I agree with you that there's something here. I agree with you that we have unique delivery, like what we give, what we provide, what we are selling is unique. The problem is you can't just sell the fun that we're having. How do you sell how do you box the fun that we're having and sell it?
Do we want to sell it?
No, the point is not like actual selling it, but the point is how do you describe that in a sentence?
Oh, okay.
So that when you are describing this podcast to somebody else or
pitch it?
somebody else, yeah, because if a core listener, that's the first 10, if the first 10 say, "Hey, check this podcast out," and then the other friend is like, "Why?"
Or
What are they gonna say?
Yeah,
like,
what's it
"Hey,
about?"
these two bumbling idiots are talking about humanity." I'm like, that's literally everybody all the time. Or, why would I? That sounds crazy boring. Why would I do that? So that's the core. If we can get that down,
Right.
it'll answer so many questions. It'll answer the target audience. It'll answer the tagline, and it'll answer what this podcast is about, and that will help. So
How about the purpose of this podcast is to discover the purpose of this podcast?
no,
It's meta.
it's very meta. It's very meta, but that's like an ongoing.
It's pretty focused, though. I mean, it's focused to this uniquely to this particular podcast.
Yeah, and once we answer it, the show will be over. Like, did you get me?
Well, okay, so we could.
And I wouldn't listen to it. Now think of yourself 6 months ago, before you start doing this. If someone tell you, "Hey, listen to this podcast, George," and they're like, why? Because it's a podcast about, I don't know, these two dudes in Australia talking about discovering their podcast. Like, I wouldn't listen to it at all. Would you?
No, I wouldn't. But I think my daughters might. I mean, they seem to watch a lot of stuff that doesn't seem appealing on any level to me.
Yeah. So we're getting somewhere. I would say that we are limited in understanding who our target audience is and is not,
as well as our message.
Yeah, we don't understand what the appeal is. So
and yet we're still cranking out episodes though.
Yeah, and that's fine. Like one thing doesn't have to do with the other, but the more we answer it, the more we try to answer it, the easier it is for us to continue delivering, that what is wanted. Because if you don't do that, you end up being like a Walmart, which is bad because then you have everything and no one knows why they're there.
It's gross.
They'll leave. Sure.
Don't you feel that way when you go into a Walmart? Doesn't it? And no offense to Walmart, but
Walmart. But sometimes, I mean, I understand what Walmart does, and then I understand what Walmart is for. So I'm not judging Walmart for being Walmart.
I'm not judging and all that. Yeah. Disclaimer, but it is true that every time I go into a Walmart, I have slightly less of my soul when I go out.
Yeah, I just go to Walmart for the things I need at Walmart, and that's it. I don't hang out.
I don't hang out either. Trust me.
But the same contempt that you have for Walmart, I have for humanity, and I have that for every store as well, not just Walmart. Even the stores I like, I also feel contempt for it.
It's like the people who cleaned up Chernobyl. They had to limit their exposure inside the radioactive parts. That's how I feel about Walmart. I just limit my exposure, just get what I need and get out.
Well, yeah, I don't know. I can definitely hang out at Walmart if need be. I can quickly adapt. So I feel conflicted because I feel I can switch. I can switch my mental mindset real fast. And depending on my mood, I can just like, this is great and having a fun time, or this is not good. Let me get out. So, yeah.
They can't even bother to give their employees uniforms. I mean, it's either give them a uniform or don't give them a uniform, but don't give them this sort of smock vest kind of thing. You know, it's like, what's the point of that? I mean, I guess the point is to designate that person as an employee, but couldn't a name tag accomplish that?
No, we gotta have brand.
Smock.
So yeah, we will get that. I will say, I guess, pitch going, and then
Yeah, we
go ahead. Sorry.
let's do a whole episode on Walmart.
No, maybe.
What do you mean no?
Maybe. Yeah.
Reject it out of hand.
Because all I have
Mull it over a little bit.
at the outset, all I have is criticism of Walmart. So I don't know if that's fair to Walmart in its defense, right?
Oh yeah, we could get sued.
It's not about being sued. It's about like just having one opinion. Like we don't have separate opinions. I think it's more dynamic to have separate opinions. Like the episode we have on the Wrath of Khan. To me, that was way fun, like more fun than The Matrix, because we just kind of agree with each other. But
On The Matrix.
Yeah, so I think we're both agreeing on Walmart, so it's not fair or it's not as fun. We need we can still talk about it. It's just gonna be less, you know.
All right. Well, it wasn't a real idea. I just sort of threw it out there. I thought it was funny in the moment.
How would you describe?
Right. So we're still on question 1, though.
Yes. How would you
our target audience?
How would you describe Lex Freeman podcast in like a sentence?
So it was originally called the Artificial Intelligence Podcast, but now it's just the Lex Friedman Podcast. So I think he's trying to broaden his scope a little bit.
Okay.
But it's definitely like he's an MIT professor, I believe. He seems very young, but he's a professor, and he's written books, and he works on artificial intelligence. He's a scientist. So it's a science with a particular focus on artificial intelligence, and it's very intellectually rigorous, I think, but also introspective.
Cool. Okay, so that's right there is what we need for our show. So if I were to ask you like another thing you listen to, right? Like I listen to Freakonomics, right? And so if you ask me what's Freakonomics about, I'll be like, two professors talk about economics and humanity and the intersection between those things. How one component of economics affect human policies in the other. And it's very interesting, very cool. You're missing out if you don't listen to it. So that would be my pitch for Freakonomics. Not very good, but it's different
good enough to let me know that it's not something I want to listen to.
Right, but it's different from artificial intelligence, right? Like it's different from each other.
Right.
They're not.
Yes.
I guess there might be a person who listened to both, but the point is they know what they're going into. And so that's, if you were to ask me, what I have a very difficult time. Well, maybe I don't have a difficult time. I don't listen to Joe. Jesus Christ, what is his name?
Joe Rogan.
Yeah, but he's the top-ranking podcaster. And if you ask me, I would say Joe Rogan is a comedian / UFC commentator who interviews epically famous people like Elon Musk and Navy SEALs and variety of experts. Is really interesting.
He recently had an episode with Lex Friedman.
Yeah. I saw that. Now I don't listen to Joe. I'm blanking on his name again. Joe Rogan. But my description of his show will share with you what he does or what it's about, and that's what we need for this show. Podcast about nothing.
Yeah.
So yeah, we got some common threads. But we don't get maybe that's enough. Blend a blend between science fiction, humanity, and introspection and general misanthropic views from me about humans. Is that enough for?
And an exploration of podcasting itself.
Okay, fine. Exploration of podcasting. I think that's pretty good. That's pretty good.
Put introspection.
Introspection.
Okay, yeah. So we just need to kind of make a sentence out of that.
Yeah.
But we can do that. We don't need to do that, right?
No, we don't have to do that right now, but we got something going. You know, and then that's good. That's good. I think that's very. I'm very happy. I don't know about you. I know. I think you think that some of this is unnecessary, but to me it's very necessary.
No. I'm happy to do it.
Yeah. I don't know if you saw my other viewpoint of like who wouldn't like it, and I think I deleted it, but I originally put down whoever knits. Like if there are knitters out there, this is not a podcast for them. But I might be wrong, you know. Like how would I know what a knitter is thinking about life? So, yep. Anything to add?
No, but yeah, I think since we really only focus on the first question, I don't think there's time to go on to
the other ones, and that's fine.
Or a need.
Yeah, the other ones can be.
So
yeah.
So that's the title of this episode. Could be "Who is our target audience?"
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Target audience. Who is our target audience? And we'll try to answer as much as we can. And you know, like in future episodes, when I was talking about that idea, we can do like a tagline, and we can have them vote. We can talk about like outros, and we can have them choose between choice A and choice B. You know, just like make it more interactive, because I think that's what you wanted around episode 2 when you were asking for comments. And so it's kind of like,
oh,
yeah, go ahead.
So that reminds me of something. Let's set up a Twitter handle. because people can't comment on on the podcast feed. You can only really leave a comment on the YouTube, and
and if they're walking on
that's where our audience,
right.
I don't think that YouTube is going to generate our audience,
right. So the thing is, like, if you're driving or walking or doing something and you're listening to the show while you're working out, which I don't know who you are, but you might be, then how do you respond to something, right? Like, how do you, hey, you guys missed this spot, which tangent thought and closing out here, so almost done, but this is for the follow-up to the Matrix 2. Misanthropic described Agent Smith's views on humanity, and I was gonna dig into that, and I totally forgot to ask you about that. So for future episode, we're totally gonna address the fact that Agent Smith was there long enough to find humanity to be a pest. He had a long speech about how humanity, is not a mammal.
It's a virus.
Correct. So, at the time, I found it fascinating, and now I kind of agree with it. And obviously, it's not healthy because I'm human as well. As much as I want to be Vulcan, I'm not. So we can talk about that. But yes, so let's do something, and then there's other things like Facebook, Instagram. There's this thing called Twitch. I'm not sure if you ever heard of it, or
it seems like Twitter would be pretty easy to set up and deal with.
Yes and no. Do you have Twitter right now?
I do, but I never use it.
See, that's the problem.
But well, no, I mean, I think I would probably be more
be friendly
apt to use it.
Yeah.
In this context.
No, the fact that we got the name associated with a Gmail account, so we can explore those options really fast, is built for that. The other thing I was thinking is, responding to that, and then for the show, having surveys, and then when we're ready, when you have time, because you have kids, but I don't know if they understand the gaming world, but maybe they have friends, or you have nephew and nieces or something like that. You can explore Twitch on your off time, and There's a whole world out there of crazy, but at the same time, very, very interactive. I would say like too much interactive. So we might want to turn off from that, but it's a possibility as well. So,
Twitch.
yep. Like your nervous twitch or your muscle twitching. Literally, that's what it's called. And it is like that because it describes what it is. So,
Okay.
fantastic.
All right.
Awesome. So yeah, stay tuned for us as we explore Twitter.
Do we want to
No promises.
come up with a name? Do we want to come up with a Twitter handle now so we can announce it on this podcast, or
No, they have to stay tuned. We can
stay tuned?
We can do that. Those work offline because we might not get what we want.
Yeah, it'll probably be something around Epicmetapodcast, but
Yeah.
I guess it depends on what we can claim.
Yeah. And then as soon as we have that going, then you can, do show suggestions and topic suggestions and whatever Australian listeners or Europe listeners want us to dive into America. I think that'll be really good.
It can function as our comment section.
Yeah. Cool. So there you have it, folks. The answer to who is this target audience. I'm sorry I had to take an hour, but I think it's not going to be the last one either. We're going to keep working on this. So.
Oh, yeah. This is the meta part of the
Epicmetapodcast.
Yes.
Do we know what we're doing next show? Is there a feature or stay tuned for this thing?
So I was hoping to interview you,
and
then you could interview me on the following podcast.
Yeah, I was thinking about saving that for episode 50 and episode 100, but maybe not.
Okay.
Maybe.
I mean, although it we talked about that it's more interesting when the drama of the host's life is more interesting when you actually know the host.
Right. Fair enough.
So this might be a way of kind of easing the audience more towards that direction.
Yeah. Yeah, we can definitely do that. The only thing is
we don't have to do it next. We can let's put that in the hopper.
It is. Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. It's in the hopper. And then we were also, what we should talk about is Dune, because the TV show is coming out very soon. I don't know if you've seen the trailer for Dune. I think the movie is coming out. So not review of the book, just the concepts of. Have you read Dune by the way?
I've read it.
Yeah.
And I read, I think the novel after it.
Yeah.
I forget what it's called.
Something Children of Dune, maybe.
Children of Dune.
But it's very science fiction. It's humanity. It's addressing humanity issues in a way as well. Somewhat introspective, I would say. Kind of. I don't know.
It's got a vibe to it. It's got a feel that is unique, definitely. And it mixes religion and...
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Which I like.
I had a reaction reading that stuff, and I was like, what? But, so we can definitely... There's some lively discussion there. Did you have something else in mind? Besides...
Well, there's always American movie. Is that not...
We already established that it's not viewable. I think maybe with the VPN access, you can view it on Amazon Prime or something. But currently in the normal North America internet.
Well, last we checked. Let's check one more time.
Yeah.
Well, we can do that. We can
do that offline.
Let's wrap this up.
Cool. All right, folks. Have a wonderful day or week or whatever you're doing. Thank you so much for listening, and continue to tune in. George?
Yes. Thank you very much to everyone who made it through to the end of this episode. Congratulations to you. You win.
You win. Fantastic. Goodbye.
Bye. Hello, listeners. This is George with the Epicmetapodcast. Thank you very much for listening. Did you know that you can listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, and YouTube? You probably knew that one of those was the case, but the other ones are the case as well. Please be sure to click the like button if that's in accord with your reality. You can also share our podcast with your friends, give us a 5-star rating, and all of that. Please also give us your comments. Be very interested to read them. But more importantly than all of that, just continue to listen to the show. And as Thang would say, be good and be well until we meet again.